you are that leader that you were describing. You come in, you see that there is like a lot of stakeholders that have a lot of opinion, then put backlogs and they put feature. Probably my best advice will be take those hard conversations first, have those conversations with those stakeholders, and try to quantify as much as you can those different features that you have on the table. First, deliver on feature, then think about not only delivery, but actually what is the impact. That shouldn't be the first. If you are in that kind of context, it's really difficult to go from feature. I'm used to work in a certain way to, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to give you my outcome in a product strategy and we're going to do discovery. I mean, they're going to laugh at your face. You have to, and Teresa Torres says this a lot, you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And like think about this as an incremental, exactly like with the product, incremental steps. And every step, the most important thing is that you solve the biggest problem you have in front of you.
Hey there, I'm Afonso and welcome to the show where I share how to build great products, grow them and fund the future for product people, growth nerds and VCs. Subscribe to the newsletter for free so you don't miss out, and it's also a great way to support my work. Alright, my guest today is Francesca Cortesi, former Chief Product Officer at Hamnet, the largest housing marketplace in Sweden. This is a deep dive into Hamnet's journey into adopting the product operating model and Francesca's product leadership journey. Francesca shared deeply insightful stories, practical advice, and her perspective on driving change while keeping teams aligned and inspired. And we talked a lot about different things, how Hamnet moved from features to outcomes, why strategic context is the most important thing for a CPO, the surprising power of revisiting your business model and internal incentives beyond just building features, the product leadership lessons to recognize and adapt to new growth phases, and a lot more. This was an absolute joy. Francesca's journey at Hamnet is a very interesting, practical, and real case, and she's also a great human being. So without further ado, I bring you Francesca Cortesi. Francesca, we are live. It's so great to see you again.
Same here. So looking forward to this chat.
Me too. You know, I've been looking forward to this, especially because you've been in Japan recently, and we talked before you go, and I thought, okay, she'll have so many things to tell me. How was that journey for you?
Oh, it was amazing, and actually thinking about putting down some learnings. But one big thing that I take with me, I spent there almost a month. It's like to actually gain perspective. So how easy it is that we get caught up in thoughts and things and energy on things that, like feels really, really important there and then. But actually, as soon as you gain a little bit of distance, you understand that maybe you're putting the energy in the wrong places and nor where you get the most important stuff back. So that I think is like a lesson that I have to remind myself every time. Sometimes I look at a picture and I was like, right, I have to take the distance. And that's so important, like in life, in work, everywhere. So that's my biggest Japanese lesson.
Oh, that sounds so nice and refreshing. Just being able to stop and I love the fact that you have that picture there to remind you of the importance of, okay, take a step back, breathe, relax, and then kind of zoom out from the current reality to see past things that you wouldn't see before. Sounds like a very insightful month and very interesting. I want to dig into that as well, but maybe after the episode. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I want to pick on your brain on a lot of stuff that you've done at Hamnet. Very, very impressive work that we actually talked about before. I was lucky enough to have you a sort of a ping pong discussion with you and cover some of your work in the newsletter. So for those listening, you can listen or not listen, but read Francesca's in-depth work as a CPO at Hamnet before. And Francesca is now a solopreneur, which we'll talk about as well. So covering the introduction, as I said, you are the ex-Chief Product Officer at Hemnet, the Swedish largest housing platform.
That's right.
And you told me before, Francesca, that creating a clear strategic context is the essence of product leadership. Can you elaborate on that?
For sure. And I can give you a little bit of context in the context, a lot of context, in the context of Hemnet. But Hemnet probably, I mean, a lot of your listeners are from Scandinavia. So the one living in Sweden don't need any introduction. But the other ones is Hemnet obviously is the place where you go to buy and sell properties in Sweden. But it's not only that. It's one app that is extremely used. Everyone knows that app. Everyone has that app on the phone. You also use to, not only when you buy and sell, you used to dream about. And, you know, in Scandinavia, there is so much of the time, unfortunately, like now, when it's so dark or you're inside and you want to, you know, dream away. That's when you use Hemnet. And Hemnet has a product that's been around for many, many years, has been founded 26 years ago. So in the internet is like ancient times. But Hemnet as a company or like the commercial journey of the company is pretty recent. And when I started was 2019. The company was acquired by a risk capitalist, and there was a really clear idea of building up the whole commercial strategy. And this ties back to your question about context. And when I started, there was a big difference from those PowerPoints of the value creation that everyone has in mind and actually was happening like on the ground. So that's like, if I would ask like someone, they would say, oh, it's really clear. We just have to do this and that. And if I would ask someone else, it would be like, we have absolutely no clue. We have 300,000 things in the backlog and have no idea how to prioritize. So this is where basically, that's the picture where I came in. And it was like, it's a lot of time that you are in this tangle of cables of mess, right? When you want to grow. And there is where the context become especially important. In Hemnet case, it was context in the way of translating this value creation plan in something that was actually a problem space or something that was tangible for product teams to work on. So they knew exactly what was their scope, and also creating like a common priority list for the entire company. Because another thing that was really intricate back then in the company was handling cross-team dependencies. So that was something. But in other cases, I've seen that the context was lacking when you go from maybe a company that is 10 people and you became 40 people, 60 people. That is not enough to talk with each other. It's not enough that I know what I have in my head and I start executing. I need to give the context so that the decision can get faster out there. Otherwise, I only have bottlenecks. So I'm a big advocate that your role as a product leader is actually to give the context and create the boundaries and define the direction, and then kind of like see people taking responsibility for it. And it's a lot that goes into it, and it depends also, obviously. We have to say it, we are product people, we have to say it depends. It depends on where you are and what's important for your company. But at Hemnet, it was a lot of taking that context setting into different steps and adjusting the context depending on what was needed there and then.
Perfect. So you've touched a lot on, in the beginning of your journey, going from features to problem space, so trying to take a step back and understand what are the problems to solve as a company and as different teams. And it seems like you understood as well that there is a lot of interdependencies, and so how to go about addressing those and establishing boundaries. And as you went in that journey, there was a lot of it depends that emerged, and that you need to sort of understand these are the principles we want to subscribe to, and these are certain contexts where it might depend and we might have to adjust. I want to dig into some of those it depends lessons for you, but before, just for folks to understand, if they're in a similar situation, coming in as a product leader, and this transformation, if it seems to be very difficult for them, what were some of your first steps into addressing these interdependencies that you mentioned, and into try to unfold the problem space for them and work from these problems into more execution work? What were some of your first steps?
Thank you for the question, because I have like some strong opinions here. And one of those is like, there's a lot of talk about, oh, what we read in the books is impossible. We cannot work that way. And it becomes like a black and white painting picture. Obviously, it's not that I can imagine this situation. You come into this company where there were a lot of millions invested, people that have like a lot of hopes and like money spent there. And I mean, it's not that I could come in and say, oh, we're talking about solution, we're not talking about problems. I mean, if I would have done that, I would be, yeah, sure, thank you, bye. I mean, it's like you don't do that. I mean, you cannot. It's not the first step. It's not to talk about outcomes. It's not to talk about product strategy. That's not where I started. There was not a clear product strategy. We didn't have at Hemnet a clear product strategy for at least 1 year when I was there. The very first thing that I did was fixing the major problem that was there, which was execution. The reason why we were not executing, it was because it was not clear what the most important thing was. So first, it was a discussion in the management team. What is the most important thing? And that it was a lot of like, yeah, maybe there was that value creation plan, but different people interpreted in different ways, which obviously drilled down to the teams that get that in different ways. So that was like point one, have a discussion like what is actually the most important thing to deliver. Second thing, do not go like, oh, this is the problem space. What they did at the beginning, we literally prioritize features. Yeah, that's what we did. And I mean, that was the very first step. What that very first step did is that we started to deliver on what everyone agreed was the most important thing, which what did create? It created trust. Because we were in a situation where we were creeping in micromanagement, which, I mean, whatever you say, it's kind of normal. It's human. We probably would have done the same. Like there's a lot of pressure to deliver and things are not happening. So you go in and kind of try to control yourself. But as we were delivering, we like cut ourselves some slack, if you want to say like that. And then from those really concrete feature, we started to, okay, what is this feature? Can we like talk about what is the problem that this is solving? So we started to have the very first thing. Sometimes I think back about it, it's a bit silly, but I mean, we try to formulate outcome. And if you look back at those outcomes, they were like somehow ridiculous because they were like feature in a costume of an outcome. But what it did, it started to introduce the concept. And then we delivered a little bit more. And then after that, we started to define goals. Then that's basically when the product strategy came in, and the product strategy started to define behavior that we wanted to drive. And with this behavior, we started to quantify them to kind of define the goals. And then from the goals, we drilled down to the OKRs. And then that's where we started to introduce continuous discovery and to bring down like the risk of everything we were doing. But this was a journey of like 4 years. It's not that the first step, you are that leader that you were describing. You come in, you see that there is like a lot of stakeholders that have a lot of opinion, then put backlogs and they put feature. Probably my best advice will be take those hard conversations first, have those conversations with those stakeholders and try to quantify as much as you can those different features that you have on the table. First, deliver on feature, then think about not only delivery, but actually what is the impact. That shouldn't be the first. If you are in that kind of context, it's really difficult to go from feature, I'm used to work in a certain way to, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to give you my outcome in a product strategy and we're going to do discovery. I mean, they're going to laugh at your face. You have to, and Teresa Torres says this a lot, you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And like think about this as an incremental, exactly like with the product, incremental steps. And every step, the most important thing is that you solve the biggest problem you have in front of you. In our case was execution.
Perfect. This is such an insightful story and also a reminder of how powerful it is to take baby steps, contextualize things where you are, and then take baby steps with a certain ambition and stand. I love the story, and I just want to summarize. And you're going to tell me if I got it wrong, Francesca, just for folks to follow. So first of all, start with agreeing on what are the most important things. And that can be features, no problem at all. Because at that point, in a similar transformation, you just want to increase trust. And you want to increase trust with specific stakeholders, I assume, that you are delivering effectively and delivering things that you agree are going to achieve certain good things. From there, you start to work on problems. Okay, see, this is the problem we're trying to solve by doing X and Z and Y. So those are the outcomes. You start playing a little bit around writing some outcomes. And out of that, you start writing some goals, some behavioral changes. From that, you even take the next step with quantifying them, which may lead you to then open the door to OKRs, which can be a great Trojan horse into a much larger way of working, transformation. And then from there, you introduce continuous discovery and sort of more continuous discovery habits. And I love that you emphasize that this took 4 years to do all of this, to get to a point where teams are doing the stuff you described at Teresa Torres' newsletter, where Hamnet and your work has been featured, with doing great continuous discovery and introducing those habits in the teams. Did I get it right?
Spot on. And I also want to emphasize what you said, that it's about evolving, right? Because if you think, in some cases you need revolutions. That's where basically you are like really meaningfully throwing all the things up on the table and like reshuffling and dropping a big thing and redo it. You sometimes need that, but in majority of cases, if you think about it, it's not only the stakeholders, it's also the product organization that is not ready for it. If you're used to work with, I get a feature and I do it, as a product manager, you're not really there to think about outcome. You're not there to think about behavioral changes. You're not there to talk with the users. And if you completely redo all the things at once, not only, you're not going to be able to deliver, because all your time is going to be in transformation changes. You have to support those. This is why it's important to take it step by step, because in the majority of cases, while you do this, you also are supposed to deliver. Absolutely. So, and if you don't deliver, then what is the risk is that the blame is going to be on the ways of working, not on the fact that you're like changing too many things at once.
I see. Can I ask you something, Francesca? The moment you realized that this would have to be a sort of a very slow evolution rather than a revolution, did you have that reflection back then? Or you just happen to choose like a more baby step approach, which tends to be very powerful, and then things naturally unfolded? Or was this a deliberate decision, as in like, no, I'm not going to do a revolution here. This has to be a very baby step evolution for X, Y, and Z reasons. How was it for you?
I wish that I could have those crystal ball. Many times I adjust from like things where they are. So what happened to us is like I was in this situation, and it was really clear that it was not a revolution, but a clear change that we need to make was talking about priorities. And then actually finding processes to make sure that those priorities were drilling down in this entire organization. That was really thought through, and that was really intentional, and we did that. And that led to then the importance of working on a product strategy, which was also really intentional. So those were like intentionally taking like step by step. But when it comes to how to implement continuous discovery, or how to then we implemented that together with our OKRs, thinking more about outcomes, that actually it was like happened. I had a team that was already really talking with users. They had been like, this was like 6 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, read about Teresa's, what she was writing on her blog. The book was not out yet. They were like, oh, can we try? And there's the caveat. I said yes, because they were not working on the most important thing. Would have been in that team that really need to deliver, that there's the highest priority in the company, probably I would have not risked it, because that's a way of like taking down the risk of like getting a new ways of working, impacting big ways the entire company and organization. So as a product leader, my approach is more, how do I differentiate the risk? Same way, how do you differentiate the risk in your product portfolio? How do you do that on an organizational level? Something you have to do clean cuts, like prioritization or not. So, I mean, I'm not willing to take any risk that we don't fix that. Some other, if the risk is too big, then it's better to take a more step-by-step approach. But I wish I had it all figured out. I mean, I just like moved as thing unfolded.
Of course. But you mentioned there's a lot of it depends throughout the journey, and we all read a lot of great stuff in amazing books, and then we have to translate that to our own reality. And sometimes there are cases where it depends. I want to ask you, was there a particular moment that you can remember where you were very well aware of what the principles that you wanted to subscribe to, but in that certain context, you had to adjust and do something differently because it depended?
For sure.
Can you share some of those examples?
Yeah, one thing is like, just to quote you, I mean, you mentioned product principles. And product principle the whole context is that I have to kind of go against my PMs a bit, because they so wanted to implement product principles. But product principle, the way that Marty Erickson described them in his really famous talks, are, for example, what could it be like? Retention over acquired traffic. I mean, those are really like a little bit broad. And my PMs really wanted to have this kind of guidance. So they were like screaming to have product principles. The thing was, and I was like, oh my God, no. And we had like head on head, like a lot of times like this, because on the other side, there were like other parts of the organization that wanted more and more flexibility. So obviously what was happening was that we needed a way of containing the decision that we needed to take. So what we did not end up in having those nice and fine product principle, this over that or this over the other. But we created, especially for us, it was at Hemnet, and it was like the result list. So basically, you're looking for a property, you search, and then you get a result. And in this result list, it's the most visited page on or screen in the app. And there is a lot of stakes. It's a lot of stakes because it's like all the matchmaking between sellers and broker happens. Basically, all the stakeholders have something in that result list. So they wanted to have like a principle. This product over that, this target group over that, this revenues over that. And that's because everyone wants to in there and everyone wanted to push their own goals. So that was the result, give us a principle. But as much as I think that principle can give guidance in that specific case, I don't think it would have helped us, because what they would have done, it would have shut down the discussion with the stakeholders. So let's say, oh, this target group over that. So if you come in with another target group, I would have said, oh, but that's the principle. We shouldn't even talk about that. And we were in a situation when there was already a lot of tension in the company. I did not want to fuel any of that narrative at all. So what we did instead, we worked and at the end of the day, we basically ranked the behavior, and we put some guardrail metrics, and we put like some decision stacks. If this happened, do that. If this happened, do that, to make sure that it was possible for everyone to test in the list, without having never-ending discussion, but also without shutting down any other kind of discussion that principle could have led to. So that is like, that's the one a case of like, we had some kind of principles, but not really, because this, like the book, right? This over that, or this is more important than that, would have not worked for us back then.
Very insightful. All right, so let's talk about another topic that I know you're passionate about, driving growth beyond new features and products. Francesca, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I've been working with growth has been like one of my passion for many years, and now that I'm like thinking back a little bit, I'm Italian, right? So I have to say, like, growth is like pizza. Like, you know, you taste it and then you want more, and then you want more, and then you want more. And then what happens is sometimes someone puts pineapple on pizza, and I mean, sorry, you don't do that. I mean, not in my book. You don't do that. It ends up like something really, let's say, interesting, but you lose it by wanting to do a lot of stuff. So I think one area that in general is not talked enough about is how do you achieve growth by actually innovating beyond the actual features. There's also, we as product people, we tend to always think like build more, it's better, but that's not the way. An example, I mean, this was for an e-commerce marketplace that I worked for. The e-commerce marketplace, was like 8 years ago. So the space is really crowded. It's like a lot of incumbents, and there was this wave of new marketplaces coming from China back then. And what happened is that the marketplace had a shipping fee. So the beginning, we thought, okay, we take away the shipping fee. We want to be the local marketplace. We take that away. That will be a reason for the customers to choose us. And obviously, we have all this narrative about being really local, about like, you know, having your products like almost kilometer zero, and so you don't have to pay the shipment, etc. Which, you know, gave some PR and gave some positioning, but the big bet there would have been on volumes, obviously. So having more people choosing the product instead of something else. So we've done that. We run that for like a year or so. And then the growth starts stagnating. And then again, I mean, you could have thought about how can we add a new merchant? How can we add a new checkout? How can we add a new feature? But the real game changer was actually going back to that shipping fee. So what we realized is that, yeah, some people actually looked at it, some people chose it, but the majority didn't care. They were still like willing to pay for the shipping fee and wait, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 days for things to be shipped from China. So what we did is actually we revisited that business model. We reintroduced the shipping fee, and the company became profitable. So like that was like a small change that is like, yeah, it's based on product development, because you obviously need to go and look and understand the behavior of your customer, but it's not building new features. So that is like, I think I'm passionate about this because I don't think we think enough about this kind of angles when we product develop. It's many times about which new feature can we build.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. So in my conversation with Teresa and Petra, we discussed it a little bit, this topic of sometimes product people are so immersed into, okay, what's the next thing to build in the product? And the most important thing you should be maybe thinking about is just a slight optimization on the business model. So maybe a new partner, maybe a different way of working with that partner, maybe adjusting how you your revenue model, or maybe a completely new channel, distribution channel. Like it can be something completely different from actually something tangible in the product, something new. So I love that you're sharing this, Francesca. Really insightful.
Can I add one thing
please.
there? It's like it's also like another maybe underlooked thing is like internal. Like how is the sale? Like if you have a sales core because you have a B2B product or a product that needs to be sold in a way or another, how do those sales incentive look like? Are they incentivized of like, are they incentivized on the product that you're building that should bring growth? And are like the bundles in these products like the best bundle that can be? There's a lot of growth to be taken from there as well. Sometimes it's like nothing new. Just rethinking exactly what you have.
Exactly, absolutely. And I also know you're a big advocate that asking for help can also accelerate time to value. Let's explore that a little bit, Francesca. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is like one of the biggest growth hack that I hope someone had told me, or maybe someone did. I didn't listen. I don't know. I was not there like mentally, but I think, and I put myself, I mean, this came from a lot of like work on myself that I've done. And I've always been like a person that, you know, go get it, like opens, create opportunity, takes something that is a bit bigger than her, and then just gets out and figure it out. I believe that product people, I mean, you're probably recognizing yourself in this because if you work in product, you have a certain personality, let's say. And the problem with it is that I thought that it was my job to have it figured out all the time by myself. So if I would ask someone, let's say first CPO role, first time that I do my product strategy or that I think about like creating an org on an org chart, how do we best organize ourselves? I felt that that was my job. And because it was my job, if I would go and ask someone else, that would be like a failure. Which, what did it result? It resulted, obviously, I did a product strategy. I asked, you know, for like, I read and I asked for some community and stuff. But I mean, was it the best product strategy I could have done? No. And I've seen it so many times, and I've learned myself, like as a product leader especially, you're many times alone, and you have no other person that is as deep in your craft as you are in your company, and that's pretty lonely. And yeah, obviously you can have some people like you and I sometimes, you know, like bounce things, but obviously you're not in depth with like the challenges that I have. When I started to have like mentors instead, you know, someone that actually is great at aligning product and sales, who can give me new perspective. That helped me tremendously. Or, someone that has done like go to market in a company that is 500 plus people where I've never worked. How did I do it? And actually took help from that. That is a thing that actually saved me months. And I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if it's ego. I don't know if it's something else. I don't know if we don't talk enough about it. But I want to scream about it every time. I have a sticker that it says, be bold, ask for help. Because obviously you're going to figure it out. I mean, that's not a question if you will figure it out. You will, but it will take you longer. So, I mean, if you're like optimizing for time to value, not only for your product, but for yourself, that's something that is good to keep in mind.
Very well said. And I know that for those listening, I hope they know they can ask for help to you, Francesca, on a lot of these topics related to product leadership. Do you want to tell us a little bit where you up to these days as a solopreneur?
For sure. That's a completely new journey. After Japan, now I'm like starting with my own solopreneur, that's a really difficult word, solopreneur journey. And my goal is to help companies that are in post-market fit, so they actually want to scale. And they have like good PMs and they have like good ideas, but they feel like they could get faster time to value. That's where I think I can come in and help in different ways. I've been helping people with being strategic bouncing board. You know, I've been there when you never have time for strategy and you have that like time every other week to sit with someone that actually helps you think through. That saves a lot of time. Or sometimes I come in as a fractional, like a couple of days a week and solving a really concrete problem. It could be how do you implement continuous discovery, or how do you create a product strategy, or how do you align product and sales? One of my favorite. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm really passionate about doing this, not only because I want to give back to the community, but also because it's a way for me to learn faster. And learning is one of my my values and my fuel. So I found a way of like doing it in another way.
Very good. Congratulations, by the way, on the
Thank
move.
you.
Very, very interesting. And to wrap up, Francesca, taking you back to your amazing journey transforming Hamnet, what was one thing that you would have done differently if you were to embark on that journey again today?
Probably I would have been more intentional in understanding or picking up the signals on when the company was entering a new growth phase. So this is like every new growth phase requires new type of processes, relationship, leadership, people. And sometimes while in the midst of it, you kind of do not realize that, okay, here we're entering a whole new space. One was like differentiating the portfolio. That was maybe the easiest one because it was really tangible. But then it was like growth. IPO was another one that didn't really showed itself until the long tail kicked in. Expectations were different, numbers were different, the ways of operating was different. And I probably now have a much deeper understanding of what that means, which I did not have 5 years ago. So I would be much more intentional in making it explicit to everyone in the organization what it actually means to be in those different phases and what is required from them.
Very good. Francesca, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Very insightful, and congratulations again on the move as a solopreneur. The product world is a better place with you in it as a solopreneur, I think. So congratulations with that.
Thank you for having me. That was great fun.
A lot of fun. Agree. And I do want to catch up with you after on the Japan trip. You have a lot to tell me. But before we say goodbye to our listeners, where can people find you?
You can find the easiest if you connect on LinkedIn, or otherwise my website, francescacortesi.com.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much, Francesca.
Thank you.
All right, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe to my newsletter so you don't miss out, and see you next time.